Not all samurai's journeys are filled with action, sword fights, blood, and intrigue. Some journeys consist of self-reflection, enlightenment, and even questioning what it is to be a samurai. Today's 1955 film is a critically acclaimed story that tackles the complexities of the life of a samurai, as well as the life of a servant. Admired by the great director Kurosawa, it's a story of resolve, misfortune, and finding the ability to show kindness in a cruel and unforgiving world. We're reviewing Tomu Uchida's samurai drama, Bloody Spear, at Mount Fuji. I'm once again your host, GojiraFerret. Let's begin. In late 1953, director Tomu Uchida would return to Japanese cinema 8 years after the Second World War and a decade of a failed film career in China. Thanks to some old friends from his early years, Uchida was able to sign on with Toei, who gave Uchida a chance to direct a film originally intended for his friend Hiroshi Shimizu. That film would be Bloody Spear at Mount Fuji. Written by the trio Kentaro Inoue, Shintaro Mimura, and Toshio Tamikado, the film would be a retelling of the 1927 film Dochu Hiki, directed by Inoue. It would see director Uchida accompanied by cinematographer Sadaji Yoshida, with the art department headed by Takatoshi Suzuki. Music would be composed by Tachiro Kosuyugi and sound by Hiro Nozu. It would cast Chiezo Karatoka as the spearman Gunpachi, who would faithfully follow his lord Sakawa, played by Toru Shimada. Accompanying the duo would be the drunkard Genta, portrayed by Daisuke Kato. Bloody Spear at Mount Fuji would be filmed in black and white and printed on 35mm format, an industry standard for technical specifications of that era. It would then be distributed by Toei Company and see a release in February 27th of 1955. Under the original title, GojiraFerret, the film would make its rounds across the globe throughout the years, garnering popularity and critical acclaim by the industry's critics. Does this film's original story hold up nearly 100 years later? Let's find out. The film opens with multiple scenes of what will be our main characters and even side characters all traveling by foot on the highway. Under the gaze of Mount Fuji, everyone including a mother and daughter unite on a boat taking them to their first stop for the night. During this time, we learn that there's something foul afoot, with an officer of the law in pursuit of a legendary thief. We also see an old man and his young daughter also make their way to the boat, their story wrapped in a mystery. A man coveting a box tightly is seen and is suspected as the thief, but evidence of his guilt isn't proven yet. Our main characters, Sakawa, a samurai on his way to Edo, and his two retainers, Gunpachi and Genta, are seen being followed by a young boy. Gunpachi stops to rub ointment on his aching feet as the two others continue ahead. The young boy, who introduces himself as Jiro, is an orphan trying to make his way to Edo and to become a samurai and a spearman like Gunpachi. The old samurai accepts Jiro and takes him under his wing, and when they arrive at their first inn, gives the young boy some money for him to spend on food and shelter for the night. Gunpachi is reunited with his lord and fellow retainer, where we also learn that the suspected thief, who is named Rokuman, is forced to share a room with the officer in pursuit of him. The man claims that he is not a thief, but a miner named Tozaburo, who earned the wealth of money he carries honorably. Meanwhile, Genta is seen flirting with the woman running the inn, and reveals that their lord Sakawa is a violent drunk when he drinks too much sake, admitting that he himself enjoys sake too much. Genta becomes too drunk, and before he can return to his room, Gunpachi drags the drunk retainer outside and forces him to wash his mouth out in the nearby stream, which ends up being a sewer runoff. Ugh. Gunpachi reminds his companion that their duty is to escort their lord to Edo and keep him sober. He also scolds Genta for being a drunkard, as it makes their job even harder if they can't keep their drinking in check. Genta agrees, and the two return to their lord. The village where the inn is has started a night festival, which unites some of our characters such as the mother and daughter duo, who are street performers, the young aspiring samurai Jiro, and our three main characters. As the night progresses, Sakawa drags Genta into a situation and places a bottle of sake between the two. Sakawa originally claims he does not want to drink, but instead rather watch Genta get drunk. The young lord dangerously walking a thin line between sobriety and falling into his old violent ways. Genta, shocked, originally refuses, but his loyalty to sake is quite strong, and he gives in. Time passes as our characters interact with each other throughout the festival, eventually returning to Sakawa and Genta, both of them now drunk, and Sakawa increasingly becoming violent. Sakawa's alcoholism comes to a head when he attempts to slice off the nose of another patron, but is interrupted by Gonpachi, who subdues the Lord, and even scolds the foolish Genta. Morning comes, and the Lord has sobered up from his night before. With Genta still in hot water with Gonpachi, a group of characters make their way onto the highway in single file, with the officer still searching for Tozuburo, who he believes is the thief Rokomon. Jiro, now standing in a tree, watches the group travel, but spots the real thief Rokomon, but before he can tell anyone, slips and falls into a ditch, injuring himself. Gonpachi witnesses Jiro's fall and continues their journey, now carrying the young boy on his back. Shenanigans ensue, and the highway is blocked abruptly by an official's procession. Apparently, the official and his partners have decided to perform a tea ceremony in the open, causing all progress on the highway to be stopped. The absurd situation is interrupted by a rainstorm, and our characters find themselves now at their next stop. With all of them huddled in a single room, we discover that the old man and his daughter's story and journey is a tragic one, as he is forced to sell his daughter Otane into prostitution for monetary gain. The night progresses, and Jiro, recognizing the thief from earlier, tells the group of travelers his true identity as Rokomon. The great thief attempts to escape his captors, but is accidentally met with the tip of Gonpachi's spearhead as he enters the inn. Rokomon is seized by authorities, and the group are awarded for their efforts with nothing more than a letter of appreciation. Lord Sakawa scoffs and comments that it's just as well, revealing that the spear is fake, much like the reward that it achieved by stopping the thief. The morning brings even more rain, as we see Tozuburo enter a whorehouse and present the mistress with the wealth of gold he has been transporting. We realize that Tozuburo has sold his daughter to Kyobe 5 years prior, much like Otane's fate. Sadly, the father is left heartbroken, discovering his daughter had fallen ill and passed away 2 years prior. Back at the inn, Otane and her father are met by Kyobe, and a contract is written for the ownership of Otane. The grief-stricken father is left alone with the contract and a stack of 30 gold coins. Tozuburo arrives shortly and recognizes the contract, and without hesitation, selflessly takes the contract and exchanges his coins with the old man's. Tozuburo intercepts Kyobe's procession and demands that he sells Otane's contract to him. Kyobe originally rejects the offer, but is met by a familiar voice. The officer who has been pursuing Tozuburo confronts Kyobe and persuades the pimp to accept the offer. Elated, Tozuburo brings back Otane to her father, where he accepts them into his household, an act of kindness and a rare happy outcome in such a cold world. Sakawa watches as the three peasants happily make their journey to their new lives, leaving the Lord with a feeling of envy. The Lord, accompanied once again by Genta, share a drink together. The Lord explaining that he wishes for a simpler life and envies the peasants for their simplicity and kind hearts. During the discussion, 5 delinquent samurai of the local lord enter. The group of ruffians begin causing a disturbance, resulting in a verbal altercation with Sakawa. The 5 samurai, drunk and agitated, draw their swords, and as Genta pleads for them to stop, cut the retainer down before Sakawa. The young lord is left outnumbered as he attempts to stave off his attackers. Gonpachi is notified of the danger Lord Sakawa is in, and he grabs his spear to protect his lord. Sadly, Sakawa is overpowered and slain by his attackers moments before Gonpachi arrives. Angered, the spearman unsheathes his spear and engages the 5 samurai. The fight ensues, and Gonpachi is able to avenge his fallen lord. He is then taken into custody for killing the 5 attackers as he mourns the loss of his lord. Shortly afterwards, Gonpachi is absolved of his charges and is given the belongings of his fallen allies. The old samurai, now overcome with despair and grief, continues his journey to Edo. Jiro, following close in tow, is scolded by Gonpachi, telling him to forget his dreams of being a samurai. Angered, the young boy is seen cursing Gonpachi as he disappears from his view. The movie closing with a sobbing and heartbroken Jiro. In the early years of cinema, the art of cinematography was a whole different world compared to the more technically advanced era of the 1960s and beyond. So when watching these older films, we are given crafted shots using painted backdrops and camera tricks to give us stunning scenes. Yoshida pulls no punches and presents this film in all its visual glory despite its limited color palette. Acting is your average affair. I can't say the character's portrayal is what jumped off screen for me, but more of their storylines and how they were handled. I enjoyed the interesting yet simple journey each character went through, even enjoying the moments when their destinies intertwined. I especially found Tozuburo and Otane's storyline the most touching, as it's rare not only to see characters act with such kindness, but their journey end on a positive note. It's even more enjoyable knowing that their positive outcome is what spurs the next tragic moments with Lord Sakawa. Despite its title insinuating a lot of bloody action, we aren't treated with any in-depth duels, save for the final showdown, which is, in my opinion, isn't like other duels which are the payoff. This fight is more of a vehicle for Gonpachi to experience his own tragic ending. Despite that, the one action scene we are given is very primal and raw. Movements and choreography are very frantic, and in a way realistically sloppy. To be honest, with some fine-tuning and more frequency, I wouldn't mind seeing more action scenes with this gritty and dirty, full of missed swings and wrestling on the ground for the upper hand. Dialogue is a staple in this film, as it's predominantly a drama, but unlike some films in the same vein, the dialogue isn't overly complex and doesn't leave the viewer lost with who is who and what is happening. The simplistic writing and the matter-of-fact delivery makes it very easy to follow and pushes the narrative forward with each line despite the number of characters that we must keep track of. My only confusion is the inclusion of the mother and daughter street performers. Their scenes and ultimate existence could have been removed entirely and wouldn't have affected the storyline at all. Possibly they had a larger part in the original film? I guess I'll need to watch that one to find out. Kosuge would compose the film's score, and really it's quite different from the newer era films I'm used to. Again, finds itself to be simplistic and doesn't shy away from tapping into different tones and notes. When it needs to be upbeat, it's upbeat. When it needs to be sad, it's sad. And when it needs to be silly, it's silly. Kosuge's score is very fluid and isn't following some sort of theme or overall presentation, but to supplement the visuals with the most suitable music. Bloody Spear at Mount Fuji, for what it is, might be the most powerful and emotional film I've seen in the genre. It's not only a film that ends tragically, and some can argue that it's not any more tragic than its peers, but this film somehow portrays the sadness our characters are experiencing very well, possibly because it put most of its efforts in the narrative and less into action. It's not just telling a story, it's showing you the story in ways that will make you sympathize with the ones involved. Would I recommend it? Well, only to hardcore fans and people who enjoy the complexities of dramas. This film is not for the fans of the action and fountains of blood type of Chambaros. If you appreciate a well-told story and don't mind feeling some strong emotions, this film is a sight to behold and deserving of its acclaim. And that's all I can say about Bloody Spear at Mount Fuji. I hope you enjoyed my review as much as I enjoyed this film. What are your thoughts on this tragic tale? Is it worth the praise and admiration? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like and subscribe to stay up to date with more content. And as always, I'm GojiraFerret. Thank you for watching.
Helicopter, helicopter.